Hi everyone, my name is Roman, and in today's video I'm gonna tell you why I moved from Europe to Singapore. There are 6 reasons for that, and in today's video, in Singapore, when you show 6, you do like this, as if you were calling someone. So let me start over again. My name is Roman, I love Star Wars, I work for a tech company, and this one. And in today's video, I'm gonna give you 6 reasons why I moved from Europe to Singapore. Let's get started. Yes, reason number 1 why I moved to Singapore is its climate. I love it, and many locals completely disagree with me. They think that it's too hot, they think it's too humid.
And I agree, it's not perfect. It's probably more hot and more humid than I would love to.
But generally speaking, I really enjoy the climate.
I come from the country with 4 seasons. We have beautiful summers and cold winters. At some point, I realized I really dislike snow and cold weather in general. I want to have summer all year long. I want to go to the beach whenever I want. I want to wear summer clothes, t-shirts, shirts, sandals every single day. I don't want to think about winter clothes anymore. I don't want to go to southern countries outside of Europe to escape winter. I want to be in that southern country.
Singapore is located just 100 kilometers to the north from equator, which means that, as I said, it's summer all year long.
This is Singapore in the summer, in the fall, in the winter, and in the spring. See any difference? Yes, you're right. The t-shirt color on this picture is different. But in terms of climate, it's the same.
In Europe, I didn't really go to the open door swimming pool after the sunset, even in the summer, but in Singapore I can do that because the difference in temperature between day and night is 3 degrees. Yes, so let's say it's 30 degrees during the day, it's going to be 27 degrees during the night.
And it's around 30 degrees all year long.
Singapore is a very international city. It has almost 30 to 40% expats. So just imagine, out of 6 million people who live in Singapore, 30 to 40% were born outside of Singapore, and they were invited by Singapore to work and live here. This is incredible.
In most cases, these are people from other Asian countries, but you can also find Europeans, Australians, North Americans, Latin Americans, people from the Middle East and Africa.
So Singapore is really this international hub. It has law firms, it has tech firms, it has international banks. It's the New York of Asia, because not that many cities have all in one. Singapore government has business-friendly policies, and they're trying to attract as much foreign investment as possible.
The government is incentivizing foreign companies to open their regional headquarters in Singapore. It has policies in place to ensure that Singaporeans are given fair consideration for jobs and to manage the ratio of local to foreign workers.
So it's a win-win situation for everyone.
Foreign companies open their Asian headquarters in one of the most business-friendly, clean, and safe cities in the world. It is also good for the locals who can get a job in a large international company, and it's a win for people outside of Singapore like myself who can come and work in the same amazing companies.
So Singapore is extremely international, and it has a lot of industries.
Singapore is consistently ranked at the top for English proficiency in Asia and among the top 3 countries globally.
It's worth noting that Singapore has always been multicultural, multi-ethnic, and multi-confessional, even before expats started coming to Singapore for work. This is a Singaporean. This is a Singaporean. And this is also a Singaporean. They're all Singaporeans, but they're all so different. From the very beginning of its independence, Singapore has had 3 ethnic groups living here, those being Chinese, Tamils are Indians from south of India, and Malay. They call them races here in Singapore, but in Europe we would call them linguistic or ethnic groups. They speak 3 different languages. The Singaporean government in 1965, when Singapore became independent, decided to introduce 3 official languages so no group feels discriminated and forced to learn the language of the other group. You would ask, how on earth do you make sure those ethnic groups, linguistic groups talk to each other and understand each other? Well, the Singaporean government had a perfect solution for this. They introduced the 4th language, and that was English, because Singapore used to be part of the British Empire, and English language was used and was spoken in Singapore even before it became independent. You have, again, a win-win situation.
This helps locals from different linguistic groups to successfully communicate with each other, helps to bring foreign investment and foreign talent, attracts tourists, and solidifies Singapore's position as a global hub in Asia.
One of the reasons I moved to Singapore was low income taxes.
If you come from Europe, you probably feel my pain.
In Europe, we have high income taxes. In some countries, they are justifiable because you get free healthcare and free higher education, but in some countries you don't get either, but you still pay high taxes. Before moving to Singapore, I lived in Ireland, and in Ireland you have essentially 2 tax brackets. You start with 20% and then it goes up to 40% depending on how much you earn. Similar taxation system is in other European countries. In Singapore as well, the more you earn, the more taxes you pay, but the highest bracket is 24%. So in Ireland, you start with 20% income tax. In Singapore, you end with a 24% income tax.
Singapore has no capital gain tax, no overseas income tax, and its value-added tax, or goods and services tax as it's called in Singapore, stands at 9%. It increased over the last few years, but it's still lower compared with a European average of 22%. Despite paying lower taxes than in Europe, you get great public transport, safe and clean streets, affordable housing in Singapore, something you would usually get in European countries with higher taxes.
So you don't pay for that through taxes, and yet you get that in return, something that really blew my mind. Singapore is a big city with a lot of things to do. This is something Singaporeans would completely disagree with me on, because they think that Singapore is one of the most boring cities in the world, but I think otherwise. First of all, Singapore is a big city, which by default makes it a good place for social life. Now, here are 2 aspects here. Singapore has small landmass, but a large population. So yes, in terms of landmass, you can go from east of Singapore to west of Singapore by car just within 1 hour.
If Singapore were in Europe, it would be the 4th largest city in terms of population after Istanbul, Moscow, and London. Singapore is small compared with such Asian giants as Tokyo or Shanghai. Each of them has over 20 million inhabitants. But as a European, I refuse to call Singapore a small city. After all, it's larger than Berlin, Paris, or Rome.
But again, what I really like about Singapore is that it has a lot of people, 6 million, on a small landmass, which is half of Los Angeles. But at the same time, you don't feel crowds on the street. For example, if you go to Hong Kong, it's 4 times larger than Singapore and just 50% more people living there, but they're all squeezed. Like there's not much space and you have a lot of crowds on the streets of Hong Kong, something we don't really see in Singapore. With 6 million people, you have a lot of things to do. You have a lot of restaurants, you have a lot of rooftop bars. You even have your own beach, not just one, you have beach clubs. You have a botanical garden. You have other interesting attractions. There's always something you can do in Singapore. And again, Singaporeans will completely disagree with it. Singapore ends and then Malaysia begins, right? So there's no way for them to go like outside of the city and have a barbecue. You always have to take a plane and fly somewhere. And that's why I think Singaporeans don't really think that Singapore is socially active. But then there's much more social life here in Singapore than in some European cities. So obviously you can find things to do here in Singapore. Last but not least is Singapore's strategic location. I am a passionate traveler, and I really appreciate that Singapore has one of the best airports in the world. It has one of the best airlines in the world, and it's very well connected with the rest of the world. Singapore is in Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia is 10 countries. You can go to Indonesia, 17,000 islands, Bali included. Bali is just 2.5 hours flight from Singapore. You can go there every weekend. That's what Singaporeans do. Thailand is just 2 hours flight over. You have Vietnam, Philippines, Malaysia, Laos, Cambodia. Like a lot of beautiful, amazing countries. Hong Kong is 3 hours and a half away. Tokyo, Seoul, Sydney, and Dubai are 7 hours away flight. So it's a similar distance from Singapore to all those major cities. But what I really like about traveling in Asia is that yes, you may travel 7 hours from Singapore to Tokyo, but then the time difference between Singapore and Japan is just 2 hours.
If you are taking a 7-hour flight from Ireland to New York, you will have a 5 hours time difference.
However, in Asia, you may be traveling 7 hours, 6 hours, but then the time difference will be 1 to 3 hours. Because you're not traveling eastwards or westwards, you're traveling northeast or northwest. You can have a long flight, but then you can have jet lag.
To summarize, Singapore ticks all my boxes. You have a large and vibrant city with summer all year long, with a large expat community where no foreigner feels alone, with locals who speak English and favorable income tax. And if you feel too bored in Singapore, it's a nice getaway to the rest of Asia.
At the end of this video, I don't want to insult your intelligence and say that if you like this video, please click the like button and subscribe, because if you like this video, you know what to do.